story races forward, from a tense first lunch to breath-stealing stolen moments, to an engagement party kiss that severs every boundary, and finally to the irreversible choice that follows. No one emerges unchanged, and nothing, family, loyalty, or love, remains simple. It had been 6 years since Mom's last breath left the house hollow. 6 years of me telling myself I was fine. Dad's text. Sunday, 1 p.m. at Seaport Brasserie. There's someone I want you to meet. Landed like ice in my stomach. Still, I pressed my cream blouse, tugged on jeans, and forced a smile wide enough to crack. I arrived early, the harbor wind sliding salt under the glass doors. Boats bobbed beyond tall windows while I clutched a menu I'd already memorized. Dad waved the moment he entered. Cheeks lifted the way they hadn't in years. Then the restaurant's chatter thinned, as though someone spun the volume knob low. A woman stepped in behind him. Tall, poised, midnight red hair swept into a loose knot, an emerald dress gliding over her frame as though tailored by the tide itself. Veronica Blake. The name would come later, but the presence hit first. The soft command of her gaze, the hush that seemed to follow her. She reached me before Dad finished an introduction, offering a hand both delicate and sure. So you must be Emily. Her voice carried the warmth of dark honey, careful yet intimate. I stood, palms suddenly damp. Nice to meet you, Veronica. We sat. Dad launched into anecdotes. His latest consulting project, a fishing trip he was planning, leaving only brief pockets for her gentle questions. What do you teach at the art center? Is watercolor still your favorite medium? Have you ever painted open water at night? Simple queries, yet everyone felt like a fingertip tracing skin. Her attention was too focused, too knowing, and it stole the breath right out of me. Lunch ended, but Dad's phone buzzed. Quick call, back in a minute. He disappeared, and the table shrank to just us. For several heartbeats we stared past one another, pretending to admire the harbor. I know this can't be easy, she said at last, voice low enough to hide in the hum of distant conversations. I folded my napkin, hoping my hands didn't shake. Adjusting just takes time. Yes, she murmured. Her eyes found mine. Cool slate, unexpectedly vulnerable. Time and a little grace. For both of us. Silence settled, but it wasn't empty. It thrummed. When Dad returned, her smile clicked into perfect composure, yet the air between us was irrevocably different. At the exit she brushed my fingers as she reached for her coat, an accidental stroke so fleeting it shouldn't have mattered. It sparked anyway, a live wire rushing through bone. The weeks that followed unfolded like a film I couldn't pause. Friday dinners that always included Veronica. Saturday breakfasts where she passed the maple syrup across Dad yet somehow looked only at me. I convinced myself the rapid drumming in my chest was grief or awkwardness, or anything but what it really was. Craving. One rainy Thursday, Dad announced a 2-day trip to Chicago. 10 minutes later my phone chimed. Hi Emily, made too much pasta for one. Care to help me fix the mistake? 7 p.m. I typed sure so quickly my thumb grazed every wrong letter before hitting send. At 7 sharp I stood outside her brownstone, umbrella dripping, heart on the verge of mutiny. She opened the door in a loose beige sweater, jeans torn just at the knee, hair tumbled free. Vanilla and clove curled into the hall. Come in before you drown, she laughed, taking my umbrella, her knuckles brushing mine. The laugh hid nerves. I recognized them because they matched my own. She'd set the coffee table for 2, plates already speckled with Parmesan, a single candle flickering against the rain-streaked window. Conversation rolled easy. Favorite streaming shows, places we'd travel if money was endless, the stubborn charm of vinyl records. But inevitably the past surfaced. I told her about the silence that swallowed Dad after Mom died, about senior year spent pretending art school deadlines mattered more than empty hallways. She listened without blinking, hands folded as though holding every word intact. Later we cleared dishes together at the sink. I reached for a plate just as she did. Our fingers touched and stayed. Neither of us spoke. The kitchen fan spun overhead, Water dripped, steady as a metronome. I lifted my eyes, drowning in the storm of hers. "Emily," she whispered, my name sounding like a promise too dangerous to say aloud. "We're not doing anything," I breathed, yet my thumb was already tracing the faint pulse at her wrist. A second stretched, elongated, snapped. She withdrew first, voice shaking. "Coffee." I nodded, afraid any word might tumble into confession. I drove home after midnight, windows down despite the chill. Radio static mixed with the rain while my mind replayed every stolen glance, every near touch. "She's Dad's girlfriend," I repeated, gripping the wheel. "This is wrong." But under the mantra bloomed a truth I could no longer fence in. Wrong had never felt so incandescently right. And deep in that wind-lashed night, I understood something had already begun, the sort of beginning that guarantees nothing will ever stay the same. 3 days after Dad's flight returned, he bounded into the living room with an energy that sent the picture frames rattling. He gathered me beneath one arm, the other clutching a slim velvet box, and announced that he and Veronica were officially engaged. The words floated over me like confetti and shards of glass all at once, glittering and dangerous. I forced excitement into my smile, hugging him tighter than necessary so he wouldn't notice the way my pulse kicked. He told me there would be a small toast that Friday, just family, friends, and a handful of colleagues. Nothing extravagant, he insisted, though his cheeks glowed like someone 20 years younger. I congratulated him, promised I'd be there early, then retreated to my room, heart ricocheting off my ribs, wondering if the ache in my chest was grief, jealousy, or something far less admissible. Friday arrived wrapped in low autumn sun that painted every sidewalk leaf a deeper gold. I wore a satin navy dress and a blazer stiff enough to serve as armor, practicing composure in every storefront reflection as I walked to Veronica's brownstone. Inside, the air buzzed with polite laughter, the candied scent of champagne, and the low hum of a jazz quartet hired to keep conversation buoyant. Dad, in slate gray linen, swept through the foyer beaming, introducing me to people whose names evaporated before they left his mouth. Everywhere I turned, Veronica hovered at the edge of my awareness, laughing with an architect near the window, discussing Bordeaux vintages with Aunt Marla. Always poised, always aware of my presence even when her back was turned. When our eyes finally met across the crowded parlor, time did its familiar contraction. Her engagement ring, a slim strand of emeralds set in white gold, caught the chandelier light and scattered it across my retinas like stolen flares. She excused herself, weaving toward me through the guests, glass of wine balanced effortlessly in hand. The chatter around us dimmed as though everyone sensed fault lines shifting under polished hardwood. "You look radiant," she said, voice pitched just low enough for me alone. The compliment pulsed under my skin. I thanked her, barely managing a steady breath. Dad called her name and the spell snapped. She touched my elbow in passing, a brief electric press of fingertips that left my knees unreliable. Beaches began. Dad cleared his throat, speaking of second chances, the courage love demands, Mom's blessing he felt in sunsets and strong coffee. Sentiments so earnest the room misted up. Veronica's words followed, gracious and perfectly measured. She thanked us for welcoming her, promised devotion, glanced my way only once yet held me in that flicker long enough for oxygen to thin. Applause rose, glasses clinked, and the quartet rolled into a languid rendition of At Last. Guests flooded the buffet, leaving the hallway outside the library deserted. I stepped into its hush, needing air away from perfume and possibility. The library door eased shut behind me, sealing me amid mahogany shelves, dust-sweet leather, the whisper of the city beyond stained-glass windows. I traced a spine of poetry until a hinge creaked. Veronica slipped in, closing the door with deliberate care. For a suspended instant neither of us moved. My heartbeat counted the distance. 5 precise steps, and before I could speak, she crossed them. "We're playing with fire," she breathed. Words dissolved when her fingertips brushed my cheek, cool from the wine glass. I should have pulled back, should have reminded her of the ring waiting her left hand, of Dad waiting one room away. Instead I turned into her palm, my body delivering its own reply. She kissed me then, soft, urgent, tasting of champagne and decision deferred too long. The kiss deepened, mouths learning the language we'd spoken only in looks. Her hand skimmed my waist, finding the bare gap where dress met skin, while mine threaded into her hair, scattering the pins that anchored her careful bun. When we finally broke apart, the silence roared, blood in my ears louder than the party outside. Veronica exhaled my name like an apology. "We can't keep doing this," she whispered, yet her thumb traced my lower lip as though memorizing its softness. I wanted to answer, but footsteps crossed the parlor. Someone calling for photographs. In panic, she straightened my blazer, retwisted her hair, and slipped out, leaving sandalwood and the quake of what we'd almost let happen. Back among the guests, she glided to Dad's side, looping her arm through his while photographers angled for the perfect shot of uncomplicated joy. I watched, stomach a tight fist, until Aunt Marla tugged me into a group selfie. Flashes popped, corks fired, but the night grew surreal, brittle with a secret pressed between my ribs. Each time Veronica laughed at Dad's jokes, guilt scorched me. Each time her gaze flicked toward mine, guilt melted into something hotter. When the last guest departed, I helped stack flutes in the kitchen. Dad retreated upstairs to answer emails, leaving us with clinking glass and unanswered questions. We tidied in choreographed silence until she set a tray down with shaking fingers. "Tonight was a mistake," she said without turning, voice steady only in surface tone. I steadied a wavering flute, surprised it wasn't my own hand trembling. Then why did it feel like the only thing that made sense? The words slipped out before caution could cage them. She faced me, eyes glinting with the conflict rolling inside. "Emily, your father, deserves honesty," I finished, though neither of us believed I meant what the sentence claimed. The overhead pendant cast shifting shadows, stripes of light across her collarbone. I wanted to map each one with my mouth. Instead, she pressed her palms flat on the counter, breathing slow and measured. "I thought time would dull this pull," she admitted. "But the more I try to ignore it, the more it owns me." Hearing the confession cracked something open inside me, wide and irreversible. We stood 2 feet apart, tension vibrating like a live wire stretched too tight. I reached out, covering her hand with mine. Her engagement ring dug into my knuckle, tangible reminder of the line we were poised to obliterate. Still, she didn't pull away. Upstairs, footsteps passed, Dad moving toward the guest suite. We froze, hearts sinking in frantic staccato. When silence settled again, Veronica gathered herself, straightened, and gently slipped her hand from beneath mine. "You should go before we lose all sense," she whispered, but her eyes said she'd already lost hers. I nodded, grabbed my coat, barely felt the cool brass of the door handle as I left. Outside, night had deepened. The city lights reflected on damp sidewalks like constellations broken apart and spilled at my feet. I walked until my heels ached, every street lamp dragging a long double shadow behind me, mine and the one belonging to choices I hadn't yet made. Somewhere between the river bridge and the subway entrance, my phone vibrated. A single text from an unknown number. "I shouldn't have kissed you, but I don't regret it. V." I typed half a dozen replies. "We need to talk. Tell me you'll call it off. I can't breathe when you're near." Deleted each, finally sending only, "Tomorrow after my class ends?" The conservatory garden. 4 p.m. My thumb hovered over the screen until the message sent. Irretrievable. An answer blinked back almost instantly. "I'll be there." The subway tunnel swallowed me in metallic roar, but inside, something quiet unfurled. Hope or disaster, I couldn't tell. All I knew was that every track under the city seemed to converge toward that garden, and the moment waiting beneath its winter-bare trees. The night felt alive, coiled, and I, burning at its core, walked on unable, unwilling to halt the steady march toward whatever came next. Winter sunlight slanted through the conservatory's glass ribs, throwing fractured rainbows onto frozen rose bushes. I arrived early, boots crunching across old gravel, my art center satchel thumping against my hip with each heartbeat. The garden was asleep for the season, but the air smelled of damp earth and something trembling awake below it all, exactly how I felt inside. At 3:57 p.m. Veronica stepped through the iron gate. A charcoal coat hugged her frame, collar turned up against the cold. Auburn hair spilled loose, catching shards of light. She hesitated when she saw me, gloved fingers tightening around a coffee cup. The gate clicked shut behind her, sealing us into a silence more resonant than any music. "Hi," I managed. "Hi," she echoed, as though the word were fragile glass. Neither of us moved. Breath plumed in visible bursts. Finally she crossed the path, snow squeaking beneath sleek boots. We stopped an arm's length apart, close enough for her perfume, faint vanilla and cedar, to drift into the chill. "I kept replaying last night," I said, voice raw. "Not just the kiss. Every look before it." "I know." Her eyes rounded with a sorrowful tenderness. "I thought agreeing to meet was reckless. I came anyway." The honesty swept heat through my chest. I glanced upward. Gray clouds shifted, revealing a cobalt sliver of sky. "Reckless doesn't always mean wrong," I whispered, hardly trusting myself with the sentence. Veronica's shoulders sagged, relief and dread in a single exhale. "Emily, what do we do?" Somewhere a heater clicked on, the pipes rattling like distant drums. I told the truth, terrifying, liberating. "I don't want to pretend nothing's happening. But I can't hurt my father." Saying his title instead of his name made it feel more clinical, less personal, but a spear of guilt still lodged deep. She nodded, eyes glistening. "I care for Alan. Truly. He saved me from a loneliness I didn't know how to name. Yet with you." Her voice frayed, breaking under the weight of that unfinished thought. I lifted my mittened hand to her cheek. Fabric dulled sensation, but the spark still leapt skin deep. "Nothing about us was planned," I murmured. "But it's real." Her eyelids fluttered shut. When they opened again, resolution pooled in hazel depths. "Meet me tonight," she said. "My place. 8. The words landed like flint. I swallowed. "If I walk through that door, the line's gone forever." "I know." She slipped a card from her coat pocket, a new key fob taped to it. 8, she repeated, pressing it into my palm. Then she turned and walked away, leaving footprints dark against snow, disappearing through the gate without looking back. I stayed until the heater's hum faded, until frost pinched my fingertips, until the courage she'd handed me warmed enough to beat back the fear. The clock crawled all afternoon. I taught a watercolor class on nightscapes and spent the entire hour painting meaningless swirls, instructing students with a vocal steadiness that felt borrowed from some other life. By 6 I was pacing my apartment, heart shoving at ribs. I tried sketching, pencil snapped. I tried reading, letters blurred. At 7:20, surrendering, I pulled on black jeans and a wool sweater, brushed wind-knotted hair into something resembling order, and stepped into the ice-pricked evening. Her brownstone's windows blazed amber, soft music leaking between curtains. I stood on the stoop staring at the key fob until my pulse steadied, then slid it across the reader. The lock clicked open like a held breath released. Veronica waited by the fireplace, sweater dress the color of midnight olives, bare feet curled into the rug's fringe. Candlelight danced over her skin. Neither of us spoke. She took my coat, fingers gliding down my arms as she did. Gooseflesh erupted in their wake. We migrated to the sofa, inches apart. Crackling logs filled the hush. She poured 2 glasses of deep red wine. Our fingertips brushed around the stem. My throat tightened, but I forced words out. "If you want me to leave, say it now." Instead she set her glass down, cupped my face, and kissed me. Slow, deliberate, a vow spoken in heat. I answered with a hunger months, maybe years, in the making. The kiss lengthened, unspooling restraint. When we broke for air, she whispered, "Upstairs," followed legs trembling. Her bedroom was dim, jasmine-scented. Sheets turned back as though expecting us. Clothes eased away. Coat, sweater, shirts. Each fall of fabric a rung deeper into something holy and fraught. When skin met skin, the room dissolved. We mapped landscapes only we could see. scars, freckles, the pulse at a throat's hollow, until neither of us remembered beginnings or endings, only the continuous now. The world outside narrowed to breath, to heat, to the whispered names we gave each other in the dark. Hours later, moonlight slanted through blinds, etching silver bars across our tangled bodies. Veronica traced lazy circles on my shoulder. I want to believe love can exist without destroying something else. I kissed the inside of her wrist, feeling her pulse sync with mine. Maybe destruction is the price for building whatever comes next. She turned, eyes glimmering. Are we ready to pay it? I didn't answer, because above us in the hallway came the unmistakable click of a door. We froze, breath stolen. Footsteps, slow, measured, unmistakably Alan's, crossed floorboards. Suitcase thumped. My stomach plummeted. He wasn't due back until morning. Panic flared. I scrambled for my jeans while Veronica bolted upright, hair a wild curtain around her face. Closet, she hissed, but the footfalls stopped outside the bedroom. A soft knock. Ronnie, you awake? Veronica's eyes pleaded. There was no time. She pulled the duvet to her collarbone and called, voice impressively steady. Alan, you're home early. Flight got bumped up, storm rolling in. The handle turned. I'd barely slipped behind the heavy curtains when the door opened. Through a sliver I saw him step in. Suit coat draped over an arm, tie askew. He smiled, weary but elated. Couldn't wait to see you. Veronica clutched the duvet tighter. I was just dozing. Her tone nearly flawless, but I caught the tremor. Alan leaned down, kissed her forehead. My stomach nodded. Did you leave a lamp on? Looks dim. He reached for the bedside switch. Veronica grabbed his wrist, laughing lightly. I'm fine. Jet lag headache. Too bright hurts. He accepted that. Sat on the mattress edge recounting airport delays. Work triumphs, the snowstorm coming by dawn. I pressed back against the cold window pane, heart cannonading against glass, sweat cooling down my spine. At last Alan yawned, said he'd shower and unpack. He rose, brushed Veronica's cheek with his thumb. Love you. She echoed it, voice thin as rice paper. Door shut. Water rushed in the ensuite. Veronica looked toward the curtains. I slipped out, adrenaline fogging thought. We dressed in a silent blur. Downstairs we paused by the foyer. Her fingers tangled in mine, knuckles blanching. I'm sorry, she breathed. It's not over, I vowed, surprising myself with the certainty thrumming in my chest. We just need truth, all of it. A horn honked outside. The rideshare I'd pinged in shaking haste. She opened the door. Snowflakes spiraled in the porch light, catching in her hair like fragile sparks. I wanted to kiss each one away, but headlights washed over us. I slipped out, feet crunching along the path. In the car, city lights streaked into comet tails. My phone vibrated. Are you safe? Veronica. Typed yes. Meet tomorrow. We have to decide. No reply came, but the bubbles showed she was typing, erasing, typing again, like someone trying to sculpt a future out of shifting sand. Outside my apartment the storm had started. Snow dusting streets pristine. I stood under the awning, watching white erase footprints faster than they formed, thinking how easy it was for the world to bury evidence. How much harder to bury desire. Upstairs I peeled damp clothes, crawled beneath blankets still scented of fear and fireplace smoke. Sleep came fitful. Every time I drifted under, I saw Veronica's face the moment that knock sounded. The flash of terror, the iron will that masked it. And I realized we'd crossed a point of no return with our eyes wide open. Morning light bled gray through clouded windows. My phone finally chimed. 2 words only. We talk. A time followed. 4 p.m. And a place. The pier where Dad first introduced us. Snow kept falling, soft and relentless, covering streets, cars, and every clear route back to who we'd been before last night. As I dressed, pulling on the same cream blouse I'd worn the day our story began, I understood that by sunset either truth would shatter everything we loved, or lies would devour us from the inside. Perhaps both. I zipped my coat, stepped into ankle-deep drifts, and headed toward the pier. Every footprint behind me filled with snow as fast as I made it, leaving no trail to follow. Only the forward path, only the reckoning waiting in a hush of winter air where the sea met sky and nothing stayed hidden forever. The snowfall had mellowed into a fine, floating dust by the time I reached the pier, but Lake Michigan still heaved beneath the ice-rimmed boards like a giant wrestling its own chains. I found Veronica standing at the railing, coat cinched tight, emerald scarf whipping in the wind like a signal flag no one else could read. For 3 long heartbeats I simply watched her, cheeks pink with cold, eyes fixed on the bruise-colored horizon, before the planks creaked under my steps. She turned, breathing out relief and dread in the same fragile cloud. Neither of us offered politeness. There was nothing polite left between us. I stopped a pace away. Did he suspect? I asked, the words tasting of metal. She shook her head. Alan thinks I was up late reading. A pause stretched until it cracked. Emily, I love him. But I'm in love with you. And those 2 sentences can't live in the same house much longer. Hearing it framed so plainly sent lightning through my ribs, terrifying and exhilarating all at once. I reached for her gloved hand. We promised honesty, I reminded her, voice shivering harder than the wind. Tonight we give him every truth, no edits. She nodded, eyes wet but clear. He deserves to hear it from us, not from an accidental whisper, not from a hotel receipt he finds months from now. From us. We walked side by side back toward the city, not touching, both clutching the fragile resolve like newborn glass. By the time twilight pooled in alleyways, we stood outside my father's apartment, Veronica's second home now. Warm light glowed through the drapes. Inside, a jazz record drifted gentle saxophone notes into the hallway, oblivious to the storm about to break. Veronica squeezed my hand once, then opened the door. Dad appeared in the foyer, tie loosened, glass of scotch half raised. Hey, you two, he greeted, brow furrowing at our tense silhouettes. Everything okay? My mouth went dry. Veronica answered. Alan, can we sit? There's something important. He set the glass down slowly, instinctively bracing. We gathered at the living room sofa. Him at one end, Veronica and I beside each other but not touching. The record needle reached silence. The hush afterward felt bottomless. Veronica inhaled. I love you, Alan. I need you to know that before anything else. His face softened, then tightened as he read what followed in her eyes. And? He asked, voice gravelly. She swallowed, shaking. Something happened between Emily and me. She didn't say more, letting the sentence hang like a guillotine. Dad's eyes flicked to me, searching for denial. I held his gaze, could not give it. He exhaled a breath that sounded like it scraped his lungs. What do you mean, something? I forced the words out. We crossed a line. We care about each other more deeply than we meant to. Time fractured. His shoulders slumped as though an invisible weight had slammed down. No anger yet. Only stark hurt. How long? He whispered. Veronica answered. It started with feelings months ago. We acted on them last night. Dad pressed fingers to his eyes, shoulders wagging with controlled breath. When he lifted his head, the hurt had sharpened into bewildered fury. My daughter, he said, voice rising. Ronnie, you swore you were ready for a life together. Tears slipped down Veronica's cheeks. I believed I was. She reached for his hand. He flinched away, turning to me. And you, Emily, how could you? Guilt flooded me. I never wanted to betray you, I choked. But lying was betraying you too. This is the truth. He stood suddenly, pacing, hands clenching and unclenching. Do you love her? He hurled at me. I swallowed. Yes. The single syllable shattered whatever hope was left of softening the blow. He barked out a brittle laugh, then quieted, staring at the bookshelf as though one title might rewrite this scene. Minutes stretched. Finally he faced us again, face pale with salt-tracked lines. I'm leaving, he said flatly. For a hotel tonight. I need space to understand what pieces of my life are still mine. He grabbed his coat, wallet, keys. Movements mechanical. Veronica rose. Alan, please. No, he cut, voice tired. I can't hear you right now. He paused by the door, gaze skimming us like strangers. Whatever happens from here, you two decide what you want. But know the cost. Then he was gone. Door clicking shut with a finality that sucked warmth from the walls. Silence expanded until the ticking wall clock sounded like cannon fire. Veronica crumpled onto the ottoman, face buried in her hands. I knelt beside her, pulling her into my arms. Sobs racked through both of us, grief and relief tangling until we couldn't tell which was which. When tears ran dry, we sat entwined, watching city lights flick past the window. He'll never forgive me, she whispered. I stroked her hair. Maybe not tomorrow. But time can do strange things. She lifted red-rimmed eyes. And if he doesn't? I tightened my hold. Then we build something honest from the wreckage. Together. Or we walk away together. Whatever we choose, it's in daylight now. Over the next week, Dad's absence became the new gravity in our orbit. He phoned each of us once. Brief, civil, shattered conversations promising more when the rawness dulled. Veronica and I stayed elsewhere. Small hotel rooms, my studio apartment crowded with canvases. Anywhere neutral while the apartment felt radioactive. We cooked simple meals, sat up late talking through past, present, impossible futures. Some nights we kissed until dawn painted clean slates across the ceiling. Other nights we held each other in silence, letting weariness speak. Decisions loomed. Could we salvage family bonds? Could Veronica and I stand public daylight without flinching? One snowy morning, over burnt coffee in my kitchenette, Veronica set her mug down with new steadiness. I'm calling off the engagement, she said. Not because I don't care for Alan, because he deserves someone whose heart isn't split in two. And I deserve to live in truth. My inhale snagged. Are you choosing me? Her smile wavered but held. I'm choosing authenticity. And authenticity means being with the person who feels like the air I need to breathe. She reached across the table, fingers interlacing mine. If you'll have me in the chaos. Tears blurred my vision, but my yes was clear and fierce. That evening we met Dad at a quiet cafe uptown. Neutral ground, windows fogged from soup kettles. Veronica spoke first, voice steady even as her hands trembled. She returned the ring, thanked him for the love that had reopened her heart, apologized for the wound she'd cut. He listened, jaw tight, nodding only once when she said she would move to a different firm, would arrange new living quarters so he could reclaim the apartment without ghosts. Then his gaze moved to me. You're my daughter. Nothing tears that out, he said, voice hoarse. But I need distance. I nodded, accepting the terms. He looked between us, pain softening to weary acceptance. Take care of each other, he murmured, surprising us both. He stood, kissed my temple, offered Veronica a faint, sad smile, and walked away into sleep that glittered under streetlights like splinters of old joy. Months passed. Spring thawed the city, coaxing green from every stubborn branch. Veronica rented a sunlit loft near the lake. I moved in gradually. An extra toothbrush, a stack of sketchbooks, finally my heartbeat. Dad and I texted first, then grabbed coffee on Sunday mornings, conversation halting but slowly warming. He spoke of therapy, of rediscovering rowing at dawn. I shared news of my students' gallery show, tentative happiness blooming in brushstrokes. The scars between us remained, but scar tissue can be strong. One Saturday in May, Veronica and I biked the harbor path, wind whipping, gulls screeching overhead. We stopped at the pier where truth began. The water shimmered teal now, no ice, only possibility. She leaned her bike against the railing, reached for my waist, and kissed me. Nothing furtive or guilty, just a woman in love under an open sky. Laughter spilled from us, light and effortless. I looked out at the vast water, remembering the girl who once walked this pier afraid of every ripple inside her. She was still part of me, but she'd stepped back to let someone braver steer. Veronica brushed hair from my forehead. "Do you regret any of it?" she asked softly. I thought of Dad's wounded eyes, of nights hiding behind curtains, of tears and broken engagement vows. "Pain, yes, but regret." I shook my head. "Honesty hurts, but lies kill," I said. She smiled, resting her forehead against mine. "Then let's keep choosing honesty." We rode home beneath a sky so clear it felt newly minted, our shadows racing ahead on the pavement. Life wasn't tidy. Love had never asked permission. But in the messy truth we'd claimed, I felt something rare and solid. The freedom of breathing without borrowed masks, the quiet conviction that even the most forbidden stories can find daylight if the people living them are brave enough to face the cost. And as Veronica's laughter carried on the wind beside me, I understood that endings aren't always losses. They're sometimes doorways, opening exactly where the forbidden begins to look a lot like the future.